The individual that was chosen for the Ustanak project was infected with the C virus on June 22, 2011. A report filed several days later determined that the subject's survival of the virus after the first 24 hours was a sign of progress, despite the fact that all 311 previous candidates had died within the same time frame. At some point during the first few days, the individual was involved in a laboratory accident leading to the loss of his right arm. Despite the C virus's noticeable forms of mutation, the subject's arm failed to regenerate. Regardless, his abilities in other fields led to Neo-Umbrella scientists congratulating the experiment as a success. By July 2nd, it was noted in a report on the subject that the creature was capable of crafting its own weapons designed for the purpose of grabbing enemies. Orders were given for the researchers to redesign an artificial arm and replace the missing limb to increase the creature's performance. The Ustanak's first official mission was to capture the mercenary Jake Muller, who was the genetic son of Albert Wesker, in order to increase the performance strength of the C virus using the antibodies that were carried within Jake's blood. The Ustanak first encountered Jake Muller in Indiana, where Jake was traveling with United States agent Sherry Birkin. The Ustanak would continue to hunt down Jake and Sherry over a series of days in numerous different locations, and finally succeeded in capturing the two thanks to the involvement of one of his creators, Carla. Afterwards, Jake Muller and Sherry would escape captivity once more, only to be recaptured and sent to an underwater Neo-Umbrella facility, and it was there that the Ustanak was sent out for one last time with one final order to terminate Jake and Sherry. Determined to finish Jake, the beast trapped him in a narrow walkway, forcing him to engage in hand-to-hand combat. However, Jake's ability enabled him to counter the Ustanak's blows and eventually sent the creature into the lava with a devastating punch to the face. Unfortunately, the Ustanak, now badly burnt, made one final attempt to eliminate them by jumping on board the platform that the two were using to escape the facility. Noticing an elephant killer magnum gun lying on the ground, Sherry crawled to it as the Ustanak raised his arm to deliver the final blow. With each other's help, Jake and Sherry managed to shoot the Ustanak's exposed heart, causing the Ustanak to fall off the platform and was completely incinerated by the inferno. Nemesis was developed by Paris Labs of the Umbrella European branch as one of the Nemesis T-types. An offshoot of the Tyrant project, the idea behind them was to create a BOW that still had the power of a tyrant, but was much more intelligent and able to follow orders. They were finally successful when the NET virus was developed, a new virus created by the NE parasite, and when placed inside a compatible host, the parasite caused violent mutation but allowed the host to maintain their intelligence and also gave them a rapid regeneration ability which allowed them to recover from almost any injury. After the outbreak of the T-virus in Raccoon City, Umbrella saw a chance to get rid of the STARS team, who had been a thorn in Umbrella's side since the Alkali Mountain incident, and in the resulting chaos, Nemesis was deployed to take out the surviving members of STARS. Two of the main members of STARS that Nemesis would encounter were Jill Valentine and Carlos Oliver. Over the course of the night, Nemesis would continue to hunt down Jill and Carlos through a series of different locations and scenarios, which included an encounter within the Raccoon City Police Department, being ineffectively blown up in a train car while Jill attempted to make her way to an evac helicopter, tracking Jill to the St. Michael's Clock Tower where he used a rocket launcher to shoot down the helicopter coming to rescue her, and then confront her in the tower's courtyard before Jill could even fight back. Nemesis used its hand tentacle to infect Jill with the T-virus. Despite this, Jill succeeded in using a combination of heavy firepower and explosives to defeat the BOW once again. This resulted in the most of Nemesis's coat being burned off, revealing numerous tentacles writhing all over the body, causing Nemesis to transform into his second form. Nemesis, now transformed, would follow Jill to an Umbrella disposal facility for BOWs, where Jill managed to drop Nemesis into the facility's organic decomposition chemicals, which burned and left Nemesis's body to be dumped in the facility's dissolving pool. Nemesis, now badly injured, being nothing more than a torso, was able to find and absorb the corpse of a dead tyrant, enabling Nemesis to go through one final transformation. In one final confrontation, Jill managed to damage the creature with the use of a railgun, seemingly killing it, but as she was walking away, Nemesis stirred once more. However, it couldn't regenerate this time, leaving Jill to take up a discarded magnum and pumping all 6 rounds into the abomination's brain, finally ending this seemingly unstoppable Nemesis. What's up again, guys? Brian here at 3TR, and I'm here to present my next Versus Series matchup. And this time I'll be pitting the two most popular behemoths of the Resident Evil franchise. I will be sending the hulking giant of Neo Umbrella, the Ustanak, against Raccoon City's own personal Terminator, Nemesis. I would just like to state right now that due to a lack of information on Nemesis in terms of actual Capcom sources, I have to take a number of factors from Nemesis from the film adaptation of Resident Evil Apocalypse in order to come up with a good amount of character facts. And now, let us begin as I compare them physically. The Ustanak's official height or weight is not given in any source, but it is my personal belief that if I had to give him a standard, he would be standing at least 8.5 feet tall, weighing somewhere between 700 to 800 pounds due to his heavy build. Despite this, the Ustanak does seem to be able to maintain a very athletic build, being able to run really fast, capable of building up enough force equal to the amount of a speeding train. Adding to his athletic ability, the Ustanak was capable of jumping between flying helicopters while only holding himself up with the use of only one arm, showing that he is insanely strong. He was even capable of taking massive amounts of damage, capable of surviving being shot multiple times, powering through a series of explosions, surviving having parts of a building fall on top of him, having a giant power drill pin him in the chest, and even being able to survive swimming in molten lava for a few minutes. I do not believe that Ustanak was given a regeneration ability due to the fact that during his early existence his right arm did not regenerate. However, designers did a masterful job creating a being capable of being able to take insane amounts of damage and still be able to perform at a combat peak efficiency. Now, before I begin, I would just like to state right now that in terms of physical capabilities, I will not be acknowledging Nemesis' ability to transform to his third form, for the simple reason be that in order for Nemesis to even reach that form, he had to absorb the body of an already dead tyrant corpse and cannot do so naturally. That being said, Nemesis was still a hulking giant of a guy, standing 7'3", weighing somewhere between 500 to 600 pounds. Nemesis possessed superhuman strength, relentlessness, stamina, and was able to be highly intelligent when compared to other tyrant creatures. Nemesis' body was built to take a great deal of damage, but due to the overall purpose of what Nemesis was designed for, Nemesis was not very fast, but was capable of keeping up with a normal human for some time. He was able to jump a good number of feet off the ground, capable of catching his targets off guard, and although Nemesis was very durable, he did have his limit, and if he was taking too much damage, he would need to retreat from combat in order to allow himself to regenerate. However, if Nemesis took enough damage to the point that his regeneration ability could not heal him fast enough, Nemesis had the ability to transform into his slightly bigger and more powerful form covered in tentacles, and in his mutated form he lost all vestiges of human intelligence but gained a much more resistant to damage. In overall physical capabilities, both the Ustanak and Nemesis are very much similar. However, the Ustanak simply outclasses Nemesis in every way. He's bigger, taller, heavier, faster, can jump greater distances, and can take far more punishment without the need to regenerate. The Ustanak was designed to chase down a target and not stop until the target was either captured or dead. Nemesis too had a similar function, however he would need to fall back and gather himself if the situation got too difficult, and Nemesis' ability to change into a different form would actually cause a serious weakness that I will discuss later on. Bottom line, if Nemesis is the Terminator, then the Ustanak is the goddamn Juggernaut. Edge, Ustanak. Now, the Ustanak has a great deal of different attachments that he can use for a wide range of different battlefield scenarios. So to limit his weapon selection, I've chosen only 3 that he will be limited to use for this contest. For a long-range weapon, I've chosen the Ustanak's arm-mounted long-barrel minigun. This weapon is capable of delivering devastating amounts of firepower, capable of shredding people apart. It also appears that the Ustanak is more than strong enough to handle the full weight of this weapon, even being able to deliver excellent precision at long distances, as it was shown in his pursuit of Jake and Sherry during the helicopter chase in Resident Evil 6. For close-range weapons, I've chosen the Ustanak's drill arm. I don't think I really need to go into great detail on what this weapon is capable of. It's a 3-pronged drill attached to his arm. Use your imagination, people. However, his first and most popular weapon that he will be bringing into this combat scenario is his claw arm. His claw arm was specifically designed to grab opponents and crush their bodies, along with being able to grab specific body parts. The claw itself can be used in two different modes. The Ustanak can choose to keep the claw closed and use it as a clubbing weapon, but if he chooses to open it up, he can use it for reasons I've already explained. Either way, the Ustanak's range of weapons means that he is prepared for just about any scenario, and the only weakness that the Ustanak may have is that it takes time to dismount and apply a new attachment, leaving him open for an attack. Nemesis was created with the sole purpose of hunting down and killing members of stars with overwhelming firepower and brute strength. Nemesis carried a modified FIM-92 Stinger rocket launcher capable of delivering a powerful explosion and could be fired in rapid-fire sensation to keep pressure on a target. The launcher itself seemed to carry only about 6 rounds, but Nemesis seemed to be quite accurate with this particular weapon. He also carried a uniquely designed minigun made specifically for him. The minigun was given with a special attachment that allowed the weapon to be hooked to Nemesis' arm, allowing for excellent accuracy at medium range, carrying a magazine of about 5,000 rounds. However, it does seem that he did have trouble hitting moving targets. Now, one clear weakness that these weapons did provide for Nemesis is that they were extremely heavy and slowed him down. Nemesis' movements were very limited, and he could only fire them if he was standing in a solid position. He cannot use these weapons while moving. Now, to help out Nemesis a little bit, I also decided to count his secondary form attacks as weapons as well, despite the fact that they are natural abilities. Nemesis' natural weapons consisted of numerous spear-like tentacles that could tear through any human, and in its mutated form, he could also spit a powerful venom at long distances, causing serious damage. There is no question that Nemesis in a whole is a complete powerhouse capable of delivering massive amounts of firepower and unleashing devastating amounts of brute strength. But the problem is that all Nemesis' weapons gave him specific weaknesses, and in a contest like this, they won't really help. Nemesis had to carry both the FIM-92 Stinger rocket launcher and his minigun in both hands, which slowed him down. And both of these weapons were painfully basic weapons, and once they were out of ammunition, they were pretty much dead weight, and he would have to choose to discard them, forcing him to have to resort to hand-to-hand combat. And even his secondary form, his spear-like tentacles would most likely be unable to pierce the Ustanak's body, nor would they be able to even lift or even crush his body in any way. It would be the equivalent of Nemesis trying to lift a giant rock a lot bigger and heavier than himself. However, the Ustanak's weapons do not slow him down at all and provide him with a great deal of options that he has to choose from, and although they do require time to detach and reattach a new weapon, thanks to his physical build, he would have no problem increasing the distance to provide himself with the time needed to switch out his weapons. Edge, Ustanak. In combat, the Ustanak possessed a very basic and straightforward approach to all his engagements, relying on a wide range of weapons and his hulking physical capabilities to carry on the day. However, even during his early days of his creation, the Ustanak still maintained a great sense of intelligence, as it was stated that he could craft his own weapons to prepare himself for a wide range of possible combat scenarios. His intelligence was also shown to be quite flexible during combat as well. The Ustanak has shown numerous moments of being self-aware and able to react quickly to a situation, as it was shown in the helicopter chase that he would jump from helicopter to helicopter when he realized that his current vehicle was about to be destroyed, showing a great sense of pre-planning and deception, an example being when he positioned himself deep within a mine ahead of Sherry and Jake, where they were surrounded with tons of glass on the ground, enabling him to pick up on their sound locations, and being able to play dead for a moment, allowing Sherry and Jake to believe that they had defeated him with the help of a giant power drill, only for the Ustanak to ambush them minutes later, completing his mission on capturing Jake Muller alive. And finally showed a great sense of recognizing an opponent's tactics, showed when the Ustanak kicked Jake's gun into the lava, forcing Jake to have to fight him hand to hand, which was exactly what the Ustanak wanted, allowing him to choose how their fight would be decided. Thanks to his overall use of intelligence, it gave the Ustanak a great distance of tactical flexibility, capable of looking at a situation and better plan ahead or react to a situation best suited to his own combat needs. Nemesis' battle tactics were pretty straightforward as well, however, he seemed to have two different forms of tactical approaches depending on which form he was in. In his standard Nemesis form, he maintained a good sense of tactical foresight, and thanks to his onboard computer, it enabled him to be able to scan out a battle situation and determine the best course of action. He was also capable of detecting how many opponents he was facing along with what weapons they were carrying. He could also determine when it was best in his interest to fall back and retreat if the situation got too overwhelming for him. However, Nemesis' greatest strength also turned out to be his greatest weakness. Nemesis' own virus that made him so superior, the NET virus, weakened his combative effectiveness as its mutation continued. The mutations also made it forget its programming commands and its tactical foresight, and instead resorted to a tyrant-like behavior of destroying everything around it. So, in short, Nemesis had to choose between being standard form of maintaining his intelligence and being a much easier target to take down, or transform into a much tougher beast form, being completely lose its sense of control and being reduced to a mindless wild animal. The best way to decide which set of battle tactics is more effective can be summed up to a personal quote of mine. Is it better to evolve in combat or simply be able to adapt? I say it's better to simply adapt. By simply adapting in combat, one would know exactly what changes are needed to perform the best possible outcome in combat, and that is something that the Ustanak was capable of doing every single time in all his engagements. The Ustanak never approached any two scenarios the same way, and due to his wide range of weapons, it always kept him prepared. Whether it was pursuing a target from one location to another, or taking on four worthy combatants at once, or forcing an opponent to fight the battle his way. The same cannot be said for Nemesis, though he would be much more similar to the Ustanak's tactics in his first form. However, if the Ustanak causes enough damage to Nemesis, he would be forced to either evolve to his secondary form or die. And even though he would be a much more dangerous combatant in his secondary form, throwing away his intelligence, it would leave him much more open to being outsmarted and making mistakes that the Ustanak would exploit. Jill Valentine was not able to defeat Nemesis every single time, not because of strength or speed or durability, but because she was smarter, leading the fight to a location of her choice and simply being able to react faster to Nemesis' movements, and it is this very tactic that the Ustanak would be capable of. Edge Ustanak. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to be honest. Before I even began doing any research for this particular versus matchup, I knew right from the get-go that Nemesis could not win this fight for a number of reasons, and I actually spent a good number of days replaying Resident Evil 3, rewatching Resident Evil Apocalypse, and even looking through some old Resident Evil comic books that Nemesis appears in, and all they did was give me even more reasons why he can't win. One factor that I chose not to mention earlier on in this versus matchup was the involvement of the Ustanak's scientist designers. The Neo-Umbrella scientists were well aware of all of the first Umbrella's experiments, which included the Nemesis project. The researchers did everything they could to create a new virus strand for the Ustanak that maintained all of the strengths and removed all of the weaknesses. So, in a way, the Ustanak was actually built on top of the initial blueprints of Nemesis. Nemesis cannot compete with the Ustanak physically, and once the Ustanak begins his assault, your only options are to escape the conflict or cause a momentary distraction enabling you to escape. And the Ustanak was so durable that it never needed a break and continued fighting without needing to regenerate. Nemesis' weapons would be of no real effect since the Ustanak has proven time and time again to be able to withstand bullets fired from all sorts of different guns and is capable of powering through explosions. And in Nemesis' second form, I really doubt his tentacles would be of any use alongside his long-range spitting toxins. Finally, Ustanak's battle tactics and proper use of his weapons would be much more overwhelming for Nemesis, forcing him to have to evolve into his secondary form just to survive, throwing Nemesis' tactics out the window. Bottom line, Nemesis cannot compete with the Ustanak in any way. Compared to the Ustanak, Nemesis is simply an outdated model with no sense of balance. It also comes down to what both these guys were designed for. Nemesis was created to kill members of stars, and the Ustanak was created to capture Jacob Muller alive to strengthen the C virus. And I think we can all agree that it is much harder to capture someone alive who is fighting back than it is to simply kill someone with overwhelming firepower. Now, to be fair, and to give Nemesis a bit of credit, if by some fluke he can get his hands on a tyrant corpse and transform to his third form, then the Ustanak would lose in a matter of seconds. It took the power of a railgun to take down Nemesis' third form, and I seriously doubt the Ustanak could bring forth enough force equal to a railgun. But the Ustanak doesn't need to worry about Nemesis' third form in this particular matchup, so I declare the Ustanak the victor. Now I know that a lot of old school Resident Evil fans may be a bit upset with me that the Ustanak's got the win here, but please understand this. I'm in your boat. I personally believe the Nemesis is a much cooler character than the Ustanak in a whole, and his star speech is simply classic. But just because a character is cooler does not make him a superior combatant. Anyway, this outcome was my own personal opinion, and feel free to like, comment down below, and please subscribe to keep track of me in my future Versus matchups. And now, here's a small preview of my next Versus series matchup.
If we should get separated, just whistle. I'll come running. I promise.
An angel?
No, I'm Aerith.